But if the greatest threat to your future isn't failure, but the outdated version of you you're still protecting. Staying comfortable feels safe, but it's a slow, invisible death. Every excuse, every distraction, every pattern you refuse to confront is a chain keeping you trapped. The brutal truth? You either evolve or you slowly disappear into mediocrity. Kill the old you, burn the fallback plans, build the next version. Repeat relentlessly, because the clock isn't pausing for anyone. In a few moments, I'll teach you how to force yourself to outgrow the old you and never look back again. The awakening moment. There comes a point in every person's life when the brutal truth becomes impossible to ignore. Staying the same is a choice. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's not the fault of circumstances, parents, the economy, or anyone else. It's a decision, whether conscious or unconscious, to remain where you are. And this truth is often uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth begins. Most people are seduced by comfort. Familiar routines, predictable patterns, and the safety of the known provide a false sense of security. But the harsh reality is this: comfort is a slow death. It creeps in silently, lulling you into believing that good enough is acceptable. You stop stretching, stop striving, and settle into a version of yourself that feels safe but is far from your potential. Comfort disguises itself as peace, but underneath it's stagnation. The longer you stay where you are, the harder it becomes to move. Days become weeks, weeks become years. Before you know it, you're watching others live the life you once dreamed of, wondering why it feels like time passed you by. This is the trap. Life doesn't wait. The world doesn't pause for anyone. You either evolve or you stay trapped. There is no middle ground. Growth is not optional if you desire fulfillment, purpose, or success. The pain of change is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts a lifetime. The awakening moment comes when you finally understand that no one is coming to save you. No mentor, no friend, no motivational quote can drag you out of the mental prison you've built unless you choose to break free yourself. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it places full responsibility on your shoulders. Liberating because it means you hold the power to change everything. Look around at your life. Your habits, your relationships, your finances, your health. Every part of it reflects a series of choices you've made or refused to make. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because you're incapable. It's because on some level, staying the same felt safer than risking the discomfort of growth. But ask yourself this: is the illusion of safety worth the reality of mediocrity? Growth is messy, it's uncomfortable, it demands sacrifice of time, energy, ego, and sometimes relationship. But it's also where life truly begins. The person you want to become is on the other side of everything you fear, and once you awaken to this, it becomes impossible to unsee. You start to notice the small ways you've kept yourself small. You begin to recognize that fear is not a wall, but a doorway. This is your moment. You can either continue numbing yourself with distractions, excuses, and temporary comforts, or you can step into the fire of transformation. One path leads to a life of what if. The other leads to a life where you become everything you were meant to be. The choice is yours. It always has been. Look in the mirror brutally. There is a moment in every journey of transformation when you are forced to do something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You have to stand in front of the mirror, not the physical one, but the internal one, and look at yourself with brutal, unfiltered honesty. No sugarcoating, no justifications, no pretending that things are better than they are. This is the moment where radical self-honesty becomes not just a concept, but a necessity. Most people live behind layers of stories they've told themselves for years. Stories that explain why they're stuck, why they haven't succeeded, or why life feels heavier than it should. They blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, or even the past. But the truth is far simpler and far more confronting. You are where you are because of you. The patterns you've allowed, the excuses you've accepted, and the habits you've repeated are the architects of your current reality. It's easy to say you want change. It's easy to dream about a better version of your life. But change doesn't happen in fantasies. It begins with the courage to sit with yourself and ask the hardest questions. Where am I lying to myself? What patterns am I repeating that keep sabotaging my progress? What excuses do I run to every time things get uncomfortable? This kind of introspection isn't comfortable, but it is the price of transformation. When you start looking closely, you begin to see the invisible chains you've placed around yourself. Maybe it's the story that you're not good enough or not ready. Maybe it's the habit of procrastinating every time fear shows up, or the tendency to surround yourself with people who validate your comfort rather than challenge your growth. These aren't coincidences. They are choices, sometimes unconscious, sometimes deliberate, but choices nonetheless. The most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself, the ones that whisper, "It's not that bad," or "I'll start tomorrow," or "This is just who I am." These lies create an illusion of safety while slowly suffocating your potential. The longer you avoid confronting them, the deeper they root themselves in your identity. But here's the truth. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it disappear, it only makes it stronger. Every time you turn away from the mirror, the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. And the only way to close that gap is to face yourself fully, with no filters and no escape routes. Looking in the mirror brutally doesn't mean tearing yourself down or drowning in guilt. It means owning your reality completely. It means recognizing that while you may not be responsible for everything that happened to you, you are fully responsible for what you do next. It's about choosing to be the person who stops the cycle rather than continues it. This is the starting line, not the fake starting line where you make promises to change but do nothing. The real one, the one where change begins the moment you finally decide to tell yourself the truth, the prison of familiarity. There's a strange paradox about the human mind. It craves safety, predictability, and familiarity, even when what's familiar is slowly destroying it. The mind becomes addicted to patterns, whether they serve us or sabotage us. This is the prison of familiarity. It's invisible, it's comfortable, and it's the very thing that keeps most people stuck in lives far smaller than the ones they're capable of living. What's familiar feels safe, but safe doesn't always mean good. People stay in jobs that drain their souls, relationships that dim their light, and routines that suffocate their growth. Not because they don't know it's damaging, but because it's what they know. The mind would rather deal with predictable pain than risk the uncertainty of change. It convinces you that the discomfort you already understand is better than the unknown discomfort that might come with transfer. This is why so many cling tightly to their limitations. They've worn these limitations like armor for so long that they start mistaking them for their identity. I'm just not disciplined. I've never been good with money. I'm not the type of person who can change. These aren't facts. They're stories, reinforced by years of repetition, backed by the seductive comfort of the familiar. To challenge these beliefs feels threatening because on a subconscious level, it means stepping away from the version of yourself you've always known. The mind resists this. It fights for the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. This is why people return to bad habits the moment life feels uncertain. This is why someone can leave a toxic relationship only to find themselves back in another one that feels eerily similar. It's not because they enjoy suffering. It's because suffering, when familiar, feels safer than stepping into the unknown. But here lies the great danger. When comfort becomes the ultimate goal, growth becomes the casualty. You cannot have both. Growth demands discomfort. It demands stretching beyond what you know, beyond what's easy. It asks you to abandon the version of yourself that fits neatly within the confines of your past. And that's terrifying for everyone. Choosing familiarity over growth is the slowest form of self-betrayal. You trade the possibility of who you could become for the fleeting relief of not having to change today. But the price is steep. Years slip by, potential is wasted. Dreams become distant memories you stop believing in, not because they were impossible, but because comfort convinced you to stop trying. Escaping the prison of familiarity isn't about a single massive leap. It's about recognizing when you're choosing the known over the necessary. It's about noticing the moments when your mind whispers, "Stay here, it's safer," and having the courage to respond, "Safe isn't good enough anymore," because the life you're capable of, the life that's waiting on the other side of fear, can never be built inside the walls of comfort. The only question that remains is simple. Will you choose the familiar cage or the freedom of growth? Declare war on the old you? There comes a point when personal growth stops being something you merely talk about, wish for, or casually pursue. It becomes a fight, a deliberate, aggressive rebellion against every version of yourself that has ever settled, procrastinated, avoided, or made excuses. Growth is not passive. It never has been. It is an act of war against the old self, against the patterns that have kept you small, against the comfortable lies that whisper, "This is just who you are." People like to romanticize growth. They frame it as something soft, it's gentle or inspirational. But anyone who is truly transformed knows the truth is far messier and far more violent than that. Growth requires you to confront the parts of yourself that you've spent years protecting. The laziness disguised as rest, the fear disguised as caution, the self-doubt dressed up as humility. You don't outgrow these things by accident. You destroy them systematically, intentionally, and relentlessly. To change your life, you must first declare that the old version of you is no longer welcome. The you that procrastinates until tomorrow, the you that breaks promises to yourself, the you that lowers standards to avoid disappointment. That version has to die for your future self to breathe. And no one else can do this for you. No mentor, no book, no motivational speech. This is your war. You either pick up the sword or you stay exactly where you are. A mindset of transformation is not polite. It doesn't negotiate with mediocrity. It doesn't ask for permission. It rejects stagnation like the plague because it understands that to stay the same is to betray the future self that's waiting. Every day you wake up, you are faced with a choice. Defend the identity you've always had, or fight for the identity you've never met but desperately want to become. This fight isn't about perfection. It's about refusal. Refusal to keep living beneath your potential. Refusal to let fear dictate your choices. Refusal to let another day pass under the illusion that you'll start tomorrow. There is no tomorrow for the old you. That version is living on borrowed time the moment you decide you've had enough. Understand this: your future self is not some distant fantasy. It's a very real version of you that's waiting, watching, and depending on the decisions you make right now. That future you demands that you fight. Fight the comfort, fight the doubt, fight the old programming that wants to pull you back every time you try to rise. This isn't a one-time declaration. It's a daily battle. Some days you will win, some days you will falter, but the war is won by those who refuse to lay down their weapons. Those who understand that growth isn't something that happens to you, it's something you force into existence by being relentless, ruthless, and absolutely unwilling to accept anything less than transformation. The old you has had enough time. It's over. It's done. Declare war. Outgrowing comfort zones. The comfort zone is a liar. It pretends to be a sanctuary, a place of safety, familiarity, and ease, but in truth, it's a cage. Not one made of steel or stone, but of invisible bars constructed from fear, routine, and the seductive pull of what's known. You don't notice the bars at first. They're subtle, disguised as habits that feel harmless. The same routines, the same conversations, the same thoughts that quietly whisper, "Stay here, it's safer here." But safety comes with a cost. The cost is stagnation. The cost is potential left unexplored. The cost is waking up one day realizing that comfort quietly became confinement. Nothing new grows in the comfort zone, only the illusion of stability. Growth, evolution, reinvention, none of these things live inside those boundaries. They wait for you just beyond the line where comfort ends and discomfort begins. Every meaningful version of your growth starts the same way, by stepping directly into discomfort. Not around it, not waiting for it to disappear, straight into it. Discomfort is not a signal that something's wrong. It's the first undeniable sign that you're expanding beyond who you've been. It's the friction between the current version of yourself and the next one that's trying to be born. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They mistake it for danger, failure, or weakness. But discomfort is none of those things. It is data. It's proof. Proof that you are stretching into spaces you've never been. Proof that your brain is rewiring, that new skills are forming, that old identities are cracking under the pressure of growth. If you aren't uncomfortable, you aren't changing. It's that simple. Think back to any point in your life when you truly leveled up, whether it was learning a new skill, taking a risk, walking away from something toxic, or choosing discipline over indulgence. None of those moments were comfortable. They were laced with fear, doubt, and the ache of uncertainty. And yet, looking back, they were the moments that built you. Every transformation has discomfort as its currency. But here's the mistake people make. They believe that the goal is to escape discomfort, that if they work hard enough or succeed fast enough, they'll earn the right to return to ease. But growth doesn't work like that. Each comfort zone you outgrow simply gives way to a new one, slightly larger, but governed by the same rule. The next level of you lives just beyond it. The more you lean into discomfort, the more you realize it doesn't break you, it remakes you. What once felt terrifying becomes your new normal, and then the process repeats. Growth isn't a single event, it's a lifelong commitment to choosing the edge over the center, expansion over retreat, and potential over protection. Outgrowing comfort zones isn't just a phase, it's a mindset. A relentless refusal to let comfort become a coffin. A deep understanding that discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the clearest sign you're exactly where you need to be to become who you were always meant to become. Furthermore, burn the escape routes. There's a dangerous habit that most people adopt without realizing it. The habit of leaving escape routes open. Quiet little back doors in their minds. Mental exits, labeled. If this gets too hard, I'll quit, or if it doesn't work out, I'll just fall back on plan B. At first glance, it feels responsible, even smart. Who wouldn't want a safety net? Who wouldn't want a backup plan just in case things fall apart? But the brutal truth is this: leaving those escape routes open is the single fastest way to guarantee failure. When your mind knows there's an easy way out, it will always choose it the moment things get difficult. It doesn't matter how motivated you are at the beginning. Motivation is fleeting. The moment obstacles appear, the mind starts whispering, "Why suffer? You don't have to do this. You've got another option. Just go back to what's comfortable." And with that whisper, your commitment starts to crumble. This is why people so often fall back into old patterns. They tell themselves they're trying to change, but they keep one foot in their old life, just in case. They dip their toes into growth, but never jump fully in. They say they're serious about building something better, but their actions betray them. They keep the job they hate while trying to build the business. They hold on to toxic relationships while working on themselves. They keep the excuses on standby, like lifeboats, in case the ship of their transformation starts to rock. But growth does not reward the half-committed. The universe has a way of testing whether you mean what you say. And if your energy signals hesitation, doubt, or a willingness to retreat, the results you want will stay out of reach. You cannot negotiate with transformation. It demands something more brutal, more absolute. It demands that you burn the escape routes. This doesn't mean reckless leaps without thought or preparation. It means a decision so deep, so final, that going back is no longer an option. It's cutting the ties to every excuse you've ever leaned on. It's dismantling Plan B and throwing it into the fire. It's destroying the fallback options that exist only to cushion your failure, not your success. When there is no way back, the mind stops looking for exits and starts searching for solutions. You fight harder. You think differently. You show up with an intensity that only exists when you know failure isn't a detour. It's the end if you let it be. That's when breakthroughs happen. Not when you're playing safe, but when you've committed fully, recklessly, relentlessly. The moment you decide that there is no plan but the one you're building now is the moment everything shifts. The fear doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes fuel instead of a cage. Suddenly, success isn't a wish, it's the only option left. There is a version of you on the other side of total commitment that you've never met, but you will, the day you finally light the match and burn every way back to the life you're leaving behind. Reinvent or remain the same life has a way of cornering you. At some stage, it becomes brutally clear. You either reinvent yourself or you remain the same. Reinvention isn't something you do when it's convenient. It isn't a side project or a motivational hobby. It's mandatory. It's the uncompromising demand of growth, the price of becoming the person you were always meant to be. Time doesn't pause. The world moves forward whether you're ready or not. Everything shifts. Your environment, your opportunities, your relationships, your challenges. Yet far too many cling to outdated versions of themselves, gripping old identities like life rafts, believing they'll keep them afloat. But what once felt like protection slowly turns into a weight that drags you down. What served you in one chapter becomes your limitation in the next. Letting go of who you've been is one of the most painful things you'll ever do. You've worn those beliefs, habits, and personas for so long that they feel like your very identity. The version of you that plays small to avoid disappointment. The version that accepts "this is just who I am" as a life sentence. These aren't truths, they're survival mechanisms, forged in fear, repeated out of habit. But survival isn't the same as living. Growth demands more. Reinvention begins the moment you stop defending your limitations and start dismantling them. It's the moment you decide that who you were yesterday has no right to dictate who you become tomorrow. It means surrendering, not in weakness, but with the strength to admit that the familiar version of yourself can't take you where you're destined to go. This is the crossroads. Not choosing is still a choice. If you resist change, if you insist on dragging your old self into new chapters, life will not wait. It will quietly pass you by. Your potential will wither. Your dreams will rot on the vine. You won't even notice it happening at first. The fading is slow, subtle, and merciless. One day you simply wake up a stranger to the life you could have had. Because the truth is unforgiving. You either evolve or you dissolve. There's no middle ground. You're either stepping into discomfort, into the fire of growth, or you're slowly decaying into irrelevance, swallowed by the comfort of the familiar. Reinvention isn't a single dramatic transformation. It's a relentless commitment to shedding what no longer fits, again and again, without apology. The people who rise, the ones you admire, the ones who seem untouchable, they aren't lucky. They are ruthless about this process. They understand that the cost of keeping the old self is the death of the new one. And so they choose, boldly, repeatedly, they choose to evolve, to outgrow, to rewrite. The question has never been whether you can reinvent yourself. The real question is whether you're willing to let the old version of you die so the next one can live. Destroy your old patterns. Your life in its current form is the sum of your patterns. Every habit, every routine, every unconscious behavior is a brick in the architecture of your identity. You are not what you say you want. You are what you repeatedly do. And if those habits are rooted in avoidance, procrastination, self-sabotage, or comfort, then no amount of wishing or wanting will change your reality. The truth is simple. Until you destroy your old patterns, you will never become anything more than a recycled version of who you've always been. Patterns are sneaky. They live in the background, running silently like software that hasn't been updated in years. They dictate how you wake up, how you think, how you speak to yourself, how you handle stress, and how you approach challenges. Some were installed by childhood experiences, some by culture, others by years of repetition. And unless you bring them into conscious awareness, they run your life without your permission. This is the first step, identification. You cannot change what you cannot see. Look ruthlessly at your day. Where do your actions betray your goals? Where do your habits serve the old limited version of yourself? The conversations you avoid, the workouts you skip, the meals you choose out of convenience, not intention. These are not random. They are patterns designed to protect your comfort, even at the cost of your growth. But awareness is not enough. Once you see the pattern, you have one job: attack it. Not negotiate with it, not rationalize it, not delay its destruction until tomorrow. You dismantle it. Because every time you allow it to stay, it grows stronger. The neural pathways in your brain get more deeply wired. The groove gets deeper. The identity tied to those habits gets reinforced. The science behind it is brutally clear. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It loves efficiency. Whatever you do often, it automates. Whether it serves you or sabotages you doesn't matter to the brain. It only cares about repetition, which means the strategy for change is equally simple. Interrupt the pattern and replace it with one that aligns with the future you. This is the demolition process. Every time you interrupt the autopilot response, whether that's choosing discipline over distraction, action over avoidance, or courage over fear, you're carving a new groove into your neural circuitry. Do it once, it's uncomfortable. Do it a dozen times, it's clumsy. Do it 100 times, it becomes your new normal. This is how identity shifts. Not through motivation, but through execution. Relentless, repetitive, uncompromising execution. Understand this: the old patterns will fight back. They will scream for survival. They'll disguise themselves as fatigue, as stress, as perfectly logical reasons to quit. But every time you resist, you weaken them. And every time you choose the pattern of your future self, you strengthen the person you are becoming. You are never stuck. You are simply repeating. The moment you decide to destroy your old patterns is the moment your future begins. Ruthless self-discipline. Discipline has been misunderstood for far too long. People mistake it for punishment, as if being disciplined means stripping joy from life, forcing suffering, or living under constant restriction. But discipline is none of those things. At its core, it is one of the highest forms of self-respect. It's the ability to show up for yourself over and over, whether you feel like it or not. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I am someone who does what they said they would do. Most people live in the fantasy that motivation will carry them, that if they just read the right quote or stumble upon the right burst of inspiration, they'll suddenly become consistent, focused, unstoppable. But motivation is a liar. It's unreliable. It arrives when conditions are perfect, when you're comfortable, rested, and excited, and vanishes the moment discomfort shows up. Waiting on motivation is waiting to lose. This is where discipline steps in. Ruthless, relentless, unflinching discipline. The kind that doesn't negotiate with your emotions, the kind that doesn't care if you're tired, uninspired, bored, or frustrated. Discipline is the internal contract that says, we don't miss. When the alarm goes off, you get up. When the work is scheduled, you do it. When the workout is on the calendar, it gets done. No drama, no excuses, no internal debate. The mind will resist. It will offer you every soft, logical reason to skip, delay, or quit. Just this once. You deserve a break. You're not feeling it today. But those voices are the voices of the amateur. The amateur only shows up when it feels good. The amateur is a slave to mood, to comfort, to circumstance. Their progress rises and falls with their emotional weather. The professional operates differently. The professional understands that feelings are irrelevant to the process. The professional doesn't wait for the perfect moment, they create it. They understand that discipline is the bridge between goals and results, between potential and reality. It's the unglamorous work done in the dark that no one applauds. It's choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Not once, but every day. Discipline isn't just about grinding endlessly. It's about alignment. It's the conscious act of becoming someone worthy of the future you claim to want. When you operate with discipline, you're not punishing yourself. You're proving to yourself that your goals matter, that your word means something, that you are no longer at the mercy of laziness, distraction, or doubt. And here's the paradox. The more disciplined you become, the freer you are. Free from the guilt of unfinished promises. Free from the constant loop of starting and stopping. Free from the chaos of living reactively. Discipline builds confidence because it's evidence, tangible proof that you can trust yourself. The separation is simple but brutal. Amateurs wait to feel ready. Professionals act regardless. If you want to change your life, kill the fantasy of motivation. Replace it with the unshakable reality of ruthless self-discipline. Pain is your greatest teacher. Pain has a way of introducing itself without asking for permission. It shows up uninvited, in failure, in rejection, in disappointment, in the weight of unmet expectations. Most people spend their lives running from it, numbing it, avoiding it at all costs. But the truth, as uncomfortable as it is, remains the same. Pain is your greatest teacher. Growth and pain are twins. They arrive together. You cannot have one without the other. The illusion people hold on to is that transformation should feel good, that chasing a better life should be fueled by motivation, excitement, and clarity. But reality doesn't work that way. Growth is friction. It's the breakdown of the old, the unfamiliarity of the new, and the chaos that happens in between. And pain is the signal that this process is alive, that something inside you is shifting, breaking, stretching beyond its limits. Most people waste their pain. They label it as something bad, something to be suppressed, medicated, or ignored. But pain isn't the enemy. It's information. It's feedback. It's the sharp, unmistakable signal that the way you've been living is too small for where you need to go, that your habits, your beliefs, or your environment no longer fit the future you claim to want. The moment you stop resisting pain and start interpreting it, everything changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of shrinking from discomfort, you start leaning into it, knowing that on the other side is growth you couldn't reach any other way. Pain will teach you things that comfort never will. It will show you your weaknesses without mercy. It will expose your blind spots, your patterns of avoidance, the lies you tell yourself, and the excuses you cling to. It is the raw, unfiltered mirror that forces you to confront reality exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be. But here's the shift. The moment you stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as a guide, it becomes fuel. Discomfort becomes data. That ache in your chest after a failure, proof that you care enough to hurt. That knot in your stomach when you confront your own laziness or procrastination, evidence that a higher version of yourself is trying to emerge. That sting of rejection, a redirection. A push toward where you truly belong. The most powerful people in the world aren't the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who've learned to harness it. They've understood that pain isn't the end of the road, it's the beginning of a new one. They've trained themselves to interpret every setback, every breakdown, every discomfort as a signal to lean harder into growth, not retreat from it. Pain isn't a curse, it's a compass. It points directly to the areas that demand your attention, your healing, your effort. It strips away the unnecessary and sharpens what matters most. If you're feeling pain, it means you're in the arena. You're alive, you're growing, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Starve your weaknesses. Every day, in ways subtle and obvious, you are feeding something. You are either feeding the strongest, most disciplined, most powerful version of yourself, or you are feeding your weaknesses. Every time you indulge in distraction, procrastination, laziness, or instant gratification, you reinforce the patterns that belong to the old version of you, the one who settles, the one who breaks promises to themselves, the one who says, "I'll start tomorrow," but never does. And like anything that is fed regularly, those weaknesses grow stronger. They become louder. They start steering the wheel of your life without you even realizing it. Weakness is sneaky. It rarely presents itself as something destructive. Instead, it shows up as comfort, as a small compromise, as the voice that says, "You've worked hard today, you deserve to skip the gym," or "Start fresh on Monday." It disguises itself as rest, but it's not rest, it's avoidance. It's the slow erosion of your potential, one tiny indulgence at a time. The harsh truth is this: you cannot negotiate with your weaknesses. You cannot coddle them, compromise with them, or reason them into submission. You have to starve them, ruthlessly, intentionally, completely. Every indulgence is a choice, a vote for the person you no longer want to be. Every moment you give in to the easy option, you breathe life back into the very patterns you claim you're trying to escape. Comfort has always been the enemy of growth. The path of least resistance never leads to greatness. If it did, everyone would be extraordinary. But they're not, because most people are trapped in the endless cycle of feeding their comfort while wondering why nothing changes. They seek the dopamine hit, snacking, numbing, anything to avoid the discomfort of discipline, of doing the hard thing, of facing themselves. Starvation is the birthplace of transformation. When you deny your weaknesses their usual food, distraction, excuses, comfort, they begin to shrink, they lose power, and something else starts to grow in their place. Discipline, focus, resilience, hunger for more. You begin to notice that the pull toward laziness gets quieter. The temptation to procrastinate starts to lose its grip, and the identity of someone who quits begins to rot away. This process is not glamorous. It feels like war, because it is. Every day becomes a battlefield between the version of you who craves comfort and the version of you who craves freedom. And make no mistake, freedom is not found in indulgence. It's found in mastery. Mastery over your mind, mastery over your habits, mastery over the endless parade of temptations trying to pull you off course. The cost of transformation is high. You will have to say no to the easy, to the comfortable, to the mindless. You will have to sit in discomfort, often with no immediate reward. The world won't applaud you for skipping the distractions, for showing up to the hard things when nobody's watching. But slowly, quietly, the rewards compound. The mental clarity sharpens. The confidence grows. The self-respect becomes unshakable. And the old version of you is starving now. It's clawing, begging for one more compromise, one more slip back into comfort. Let it starve. Let it die. Because what grows in its place is something unstoppable. Something forged in discipline, built on consistency, powered by the refusal to ever again feed the things that once held you back. You don't rise by feeding your weaknesses. You rise by starving them until they no longer exist. Kill the noise. The world today is louder than it has ever been. Everywhere you turn, there is noise. The endless stream of opinions from strangers on the internet, the quiet doubts from people close to you who don't understand your vision, the constant flood of distractions designed to steal your focus, hijack your attention, and fracture your sense of purpose. The noise is relentless, suffocating, and if you don't learn how to kill it, it will drown out the very voice you most need to hear, your own. Most people don't realize how much of their life is controlled by noise. They consume other people's lives before they've even decided what they want from their own. They let the opinions of family, friends, followers, and strangers seep into their minds like poison disguised as advice. Slowly, quietly, the noise rewires their sense of self. What started as confidence becomes hesitation. What started as clarity becomes confusion. What started as passion becomes diluted by the endless whisper of what will they think. If you listen to the noise long enough, you start believing it. You start believing that your dreams are too big, that your goals are unrealistic, that your ambition is selfish or arrogant. The noise convinces you to play smaller, to fit in, to blend into the mediocrity that the world loves to normalize. You lose touch with the one thing that actually matters, the truth of who you are and what you're here to build. The solution is brutal but necessary. You must kill the noise, not lower it, not politely tune it out, kill it, ruthlessly, relentlessly, because as long as the noise has even a whisper of space in your mind, it will take root It will shape your decisions, distort your focus, and erode your confidence. This begins with learning to silence the outside world long enough to hear yourself again. You have to reclaim your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. It's about mental minimalism, about stripping away everything that doesn't serve the person you are becoming. It's the discipline of asking, is this input making me sharper, stronger, better, or is it just noise? And if it's noise, it goes. The minimalism for the mind isn't passive. It's an aggressive, conscious decision to curate your environment, your influences, and your thoughts with the same care you'd use to protect your most valuable asset, because that's exactly what your focus is. It's the difference between a mind cluttered with everyone else's expectations and a mind clear enough to execute on your own. When the noise dies, something powerful happens. You begin to hear a voice that had been buried under years of distraction, the voice of your own power. It's the clarity that reminds you what you actually want, the strength that whispers, you've always been capable, the certainty that no amount of outside doubt can ever replace. You realize that the opinions of others are irrelevant to the life you're building. Their fears are not your fears. Their limitations are not your limitations. Their doubts do not belong in your story. You stop waiting for approval. You stop explaining yourself. You stop negotiating your ambition to make others more comfortable. The silence becomes sacred. In that silence, you become dangerous, focused, unstoppable. You realize that greatness was never about doing more. It was about doing less of what doesn't matter and more of what does. Kill the noise. Because your life is too important, your time is too short, and your potential is too massive to be wasted listening to anything that doesn't serve your highest purpose. Build relentless focus. Focus is not some mystical gift handed out to the lucky few. It isn't something you're born with. It's a weapon, one of the sharpest, most powerful weapons you will ever forge. And like any weapon, it is built, not found. In a world addicted to distraction, those who master focus become dangerous. They move faster, think clearer, and execute while everyone else is still drowning in noise. Most people drift, not because they're lazy, not because they lack ambition, but because they've never trained their minds to do anything else. The modern world thrives on stealing attention. Endless, meaningless conversations and the constant pull of convenience all fight for a piece of your mind. And for most, it's a fight they're losing without even realizing it. They sit down to work only to check a message, open a browser, glance at the news, and suddenly an hour disappears. Momentum gone, energy drained, purpose diluted. This is how average happens. Not in big dramatic failures, but in 1,000 tiny moments of distraction stacked on top of each other until mediocrity becomes the default. Focus isn't just about productivity. It's about survival in a world built to fracture your attention. It's about refusing to let your mind become the playground of every cheap dopamine hit that tries to pull you off course. Building relentless focus starts with a decision, a line drawn in the sand that says, I will not live like this. It's the realization that nothing meaningful can be built in a scattered mind. Greatness demands obsession, and obsession demands the ability to lock in so deeply that the outside world fades away. It's not about balance, it's about knowing exactly what matters and eliminating everything that doesn't. This is war, a daily battle against the trivial, the useless, the distracting. And the truth is, most of what fills your day doesn't deserve to. Half the tasks you stress over have nothing to do with the life you say you want to build. Ruthless focus means seeing this clearly and cutting with precision. It's about training your mind like a muscle. At first, it's uncomfortable, your brain resists, but discipline is louder. You force yourself to stay in the work, to push through boredom, to resist the twitch to check, to escape. Each time you do, the muscle strengthens. Each time you don't, it weakens. Eventually, the shift happens. What used to feel difficult becomes your new default. Locking in becomes natural. Flow becomes familiar. While others drift from task to task, pulled by whatever grabs their attention, you move with precision. You execute, you finish, you build, you win. Relentless focus isn't just about work, it's about life. It's the ability to say no. No to distractions, no to unnecessary obligations, no to people, places, and habits that don't move you forward. Every yes to something meaningless is a no to something meaningful. And over time, those choices become your destiny. There is no shortcut here, no hack, no app. The weapon of focus is forged in discipline, in repetition, in the uncomfortable practice of doing what most refuse to do. But once it's built, it separates you from everyone else. Because in a world of chaos, the person who can focus is the person who can create. Who can dominate? Who can win? This is the edge, the separator, the unfair advantage. Build relentless focus, and there is almost nothing you cannot do. Identity shifts. Become who you're meant to be. Real transformation doesn't begin with what you do, it begins with who you believe you are. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to change their habits, routines, and behaviors while dragging around the same worn-out identity. They tweak the surface, hoping small adjustments will lead to massive change. But tweaking doesn't transform. What transforms is when you fundamentally shift the way you see yourself. The moment you stop living as the person shaped by your past and start becoming the person designed by your future. The world loves to tell you that change starts with action. Wake up earlier, eat healthier, work harder, and yes, action matters. But action without identity is temporary. You can force yourself to behave differently for a while, but if deep down you still believe you're undisciplined, still believe you're not capable, still believe you're the same person you've always been, then your mind will pull you back. You might change for a day, a week, even a month, but eventually the subconscious always wins. Identity drives behavior. This is why the most powerful shift you can ever make isn't external, it's internal. It's choosing to embody the future version of yourself right now, not tomorrow, not when you've achieved a certain milestone. Now, you decide, you declare it, you step into it, before the world gives you permission, before the results arrive, before there's any external evidence to support it. This is the difference between those who evolve and those who stay stuck. People who stay stuck keep waiting for proof before they believe. They think, when I succeed, I'll believe I'm a successful person. When I lose the weight, I'll believe I'm disciplined. When I hit the goal, then I'll start acting like the kind of person who deserves it. But that's backward. Waiting for evidence before you adopt the identity guarantees you stay chained to the old version of yourself. It's not results that create identity. It's identity that creates results. If you want to become someone new, you have to think, act, and make decisions as that person now. Ask yourself, how does the future version of me wake up? What does that version tolerate? What do they refuse? What do they prioritize? Every action becomes a vote for the identity you are building. Every decision is a brick in the foundation of the future you. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is believe it till you become it. It's understanding that identity isn't something fixed. It's fluid, malleable, reprogrammable. You're not bound by the story of who you've been. You are only bound by the story you keep choosing to believe. And the moment you decide to change that story, you begin to change everything else. The process isn't easy because your old identity will fight for survival. It will remind you of your past mistakes, your old patterns, your failures. It will whisper, this isn't you. Who are you trying to be? And in that moment, you answer back, not with words, but with action. You embody the future self anyway. You act anyway. You show up anyway. Because the truth is, the moment you start behaving like the person you want to become, you already are. Change is never about doing more. It's about becoming more. When you shift your identity, your behaviors shift naturally. Discipline stops feeling like punishment. It becomes alignment. Hard work stops being a grind. It becomes the obvious choice for someone like you. Growth stops being something you chase. It becomes who you are. Who you've been doesn't have to dictate who you're becoming. Identity isn't a prison, it's a decision, and the power to change it has always been yours. Rewire your mindset daily. Your mind is not set in stone. It's not some fixed structure, locked by the conditions of your past or the labels people have placed on you. It's software, alive, malleable, endlessly programmable. And like any software, if you don't update it, if you don't refine it, if you don't deliberately upgrade it, it becomes outdated. Worse, it begins running corrupted programs, fear, doubt, distraction, procrastination, self-sabotage. These programs don't need your permission to run. They've been installed by years of conditioning, repetition, and survival mechanisms, passed down through experiences, failures, and even the voices of others. The brutal truth is this: if you don't take control of your mind, the world will do it for you. And the world has no interest in programming you for greatness. It will program you for consumption, distraction, and smallness. This is why mental conditioning isn't something you do once. It's not a seminar you attend. It's not a book you read and then forget. It's a daily discipline. a non-negotiable ritual, a practice of deliberately rewiring your thoughts, your beliefs, and your identity every single day. The moment you wake up, your mind is vulnerable. It's pliable, like wet cement waiting for impressions. The first thoughts you feed it set the tone for the entire day. You allow randomness, noise, and negativity to hijack your mental software before you've even begun. But if you claim those first moments, if you consciously feed your mind with intention, everything changes. You shift from reactive to proactive, from victim of circumstance to architect of your own reality. The most powerful people in the world don't leave their mindset to chance. They ritualize it. Mornings become sacred, time carved out to visualize the future self, to program the mind with affirmations, to feed it with thoughts of discipline, resilience, and power. Whether it's 5 minutes or 50, that space becomes the mental gym where strength is built long before the day throws its punches. Midday isn't a break from this process. It's a checkpoint, a recalibration, because the world will try to pull you off course. Stress will try to erode your focus. Doubt will creep in when things don't move fast enough. But stopping, even for a few minutes, to breathe, to remind yourself who you are and where you're going, that's how you pull yourself back into alignment. You don't let the day drift. You take it back. And at night, the ritual continues. The final thoughts before sleep are seeds planted deep into your subconscious. Most people go to bed flooded with stress, replaying problems, feeding fear, or numbing themselves with meaningless distraction. But those who understand the power of the mind use this window to embed gratitude, to visualize tomorrow's wins, to remind themselves that no matter what happened today, they are still in control of the story being written. This is how mindset rewiring happens. Not once, not occasionally, but every single day. Like sharpening a blade, like conditioning a muscle. It's the relentless repetition of thought patterns that align with the future, not the past. Your mind listens. It absorbs, it obeys whatever it hears most frequently. Feed it weakness, it produces weakness. Feed it strength, discipline, and clarity, and it becomes a weapon so sharp, so dialed in, that almost nothing can pull you off course. The old software is running by default. Outdated beliefs, scarcity, doubt, but the update is available. And it's built in the quiet rituals, the stolen moments, the conscious choices made every morning, every afternoon, and every night. Rewire it relentlessly, because the person you become is a direct reflection of the code you run daily. Master the art of reinvention cycles growth. Growth has never been a straight line. It doesn't move neatly from one milestone to the next in perfect progression. It's messy, unpredictable, and brutally cyclical. Most people don't understand this. They believe that once they break through a certain barrier, whether it's financial, physical, mental, or emotional, they'll finally arrive at some permanent version of success. But that's a lie. There is no arrival. There is no final form. The process is a cycle, an endless rhythm of killing, rebuilding, upgrading, and repeating. At every stage of your life, the version of you that gets you to one level eventually becomes the limitation that holds you back from the next. What once was an asset becomes a liability. The habits that once served you become cages. The mindset that helped you survive no longer fits where you are destined to go. Growth is brutal like that. It forces you to outgrow yourself again and again, whether you're ready or not. The people who win long term aren't the ones who grind endlessly in a straight line. They are the ones who understand the nature of reinvention. They master the art of cycles. They know when to kill the parts of themselves that no longer serve the mission. They know when to step back, rebuild with new tools, new strategies, and new identities. And they know when to upgrade, sharpen the edges, reinforce the foundation, push for the next level. Then, when the time comes, they do it all over again. This cycle isn't easy. Killing the old self feels like death. There's grief in letting go of who you were, even when that version was limiting. It's painful to admit that the systems, beliefs, and routines you worked so hard to build are now the very things keeping you stuck. But this is the price of evolution. You don't get to keep the comfort of the old if you want the rewards of the new. What makes this process sustainable, what separates reinvention from burnout, is knowing when to shift gears. It's not about sprinting endlessly. It's about understanding when you're in a season of destruction, breaking down what no longer fits. When you're in a season of rebuilding, laying new foundations, adopting new skills, and stepping into the next identity. And when you're in a season of upgrading, optimizing what works, squeezing every ounce of progress from the new version of yourself before the next inevitable cycle begins. Most people burn out because they mistake the rebuild phase for weakness. They believe that slowing down to recalibrate means they're failing, but it means they're respecting the process. Fire cannot burn forever without fuel. Muscles cannot grow without recovery, and the mind cannot evolve without space to think, reflect, and realign. The truth is, the faster you learn to let go, the faster you grow. The longer you cling to the old, the more painful the evolution becomes. The most powerful people on the planet are those who don't flinch at the idea of death, not literal death, but the death of old patterns, old versions, and outdated identities. They become ruthless with the process. Kill, rebuild, upgrade, repeat, and each time they go through it, they rise sharper, stronger, more precise. Each cycle burns away weakness, distractions, and delusions. Each cycle reforges them into something more resilient, more aligned, and more unstoppable. This is the rhythm of mastery. It never ends. It's a lifelong commitment to becoming. There is no finish line, no final form. Only the question every day of whether you are willing to once again let go of who you've been in order to become who you're meant to be. The game is simple. Evolve or dissolve. Burn the old, build the new. Again and again and again. Become immune to setbacks. Setbacks are inevitable. Failure is inevitable. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. But what separates those who succeed from those who fold isn't whether or not failure happens. It's how they respond when it does. The problem is that most people take failure personally. They tie it to their identity, to their worth, to their sense of self. When something doesn't work, they don't just think the process failed. They think, I failed. I'm a failure. And that is the fastest way to lose. The truth is far less emotional than most people are willing to accept. Failure isn't personal. It's mechanical. It's feedback. It's data. When something breaks, it's not a sign that you are broken. It's simply a sign that the system, the strategy, the approach, the timing, the execution had a flaw, and flaws can be fixed. But you cannot fix something when you're too busy internalizing it, drowning in shame, frustration, or self-pity. The world has conditioned people to fear failure. From the time we're children, failure is treated as something shameful. Get the wrong answer, and you're punished. Make a mistake, and you're embarrassed. This conditioning wires people to believe that failure equals unworthiness, incompetence, or being less than. But those who break free from this programming learn the secret that changes everything. Failure is nothing more than a neutral event. It's information. Nothing more, nothing less. The most dangerous mistake anyone can make is tying their emotions to outcomes, because outcomes are unpredictable. No matter how well you prepare, how disciplined you are, or how perfect your effort seems, there are always factors you can't control. Markets shift, people disappoint. Life throws chaos into your plans. If your emotional state rises and falls based on whether things go your way, you'll forever live like a puppet on the strings of circumstance. The antidote is detachment, not apathy, not laziness, not pretending that outcomes don't matter, because they do. But detachment means understanding that your worth, your identity, and your belief in yourself are not up for negotiation simply because something didn't work. You detach your emotions from the results and tie them instead to the process, to the work, to the commitment. You stop asking, did it work yet? And start asking, did I show up today as the person I said I would be? This is the comeback mindset. The refusal to let one loss define the story. It's the understanding that one failed launch, one missed opportunity, one rejection, one collapse of a plan is not the end. It's a data point, a lesson, a recalibration. Winners do not avoid setbacks, they simply process them differently. While others spiral into self-doubt and paralysis, winners dissect the failure. What broke? Why? How can it be rebuilt? Stronger. What needs to change? The strategy, the execution, the timing, or the effort? And once that analysis is complete, they move. Quickly, relentlessly, no wallowing, no obsessing over the past, no feeding the story of, I guess I'm just not cut out for this. They understand that the story you attach to failure determines whether it becomes a stepping stone or a tombstone. Look at anyone who has ever done anything great in business, in athletics, in art, in life, and you will not see someone who avoided failure. You will see someone who failed more times than most people are willing to even try. But the difference is, they learned not to bleed emotionally every time it happened. They built an immunity to the sting of setbacks, not because it didn't hurt, but because they trained themselves to feel it, process it, and keep moving. Becoming immune to setbacks doesn't mean becoming numb. It means developing emotional endurance, the ability to feel the hit but not let it take you down. The ability to stare at disappointment and say, This isn't how the story ends. It's understanding that failure isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're in the game, that you're swinging, that you're testing the edges of your potential. You cannot escape failure, but you can absolutely escape the identity of failure. You do that by refusing to attach who you are to what went wrong. You learn to study the failure like an engineer studies a broken machine, detached, curious, and ruthless in finding solutions. That's how you become immune. Not by avoiding the hit, but by becoming the kind of person who never lets it be the reason they stop. Cut dead weight. There's a brutal truth about growth that most people avoid facing for as long as they can. You cannot rise while dragging dead weight behind you. Whether it's people, habits, environments, or mindsets, everything in your life is either pulling you forward or holding you back. There is no neutral. There is no middle ground. Everything and everyone you surround yourself with is influencing the direction of your life, whether you want to admit it or not. It's not an easy truth to swallow. You want to believe you can take everyone with you, that you can hold on to the old while stepping into the new. But growth doesn't work like that. Growth is a shedding, a letting go, a ruthless audit of everything in your world, asking the hard question, does this serve where I'm going, or is this anchoring me to who I used to be? Look around your life. Look at the people you talk to every day, the conversations you engage in, the habits you practice, the places you spend your time. Are they aligned with the person you're becoming, or are they tied to the version of you that's still stuck, still doubting, still playing small? Most people never stop to ask this. They stay trapped in circles of comfort, surrounded by people who normalize mediocrity, habits that reward complacency, and environments that breed stagnation. The harshest part of growth is realizing that not everyone gets to come with you. Some people were perfect for the version of you that you used to be, the you who was okay with settling, with playing small, with avoiding discomfort. But as you rise, as your standards sharpen, as your vision becomes clearer, you begin to see who around you is truly aligned with that future and who is silently holding you back. Cutting dead weight doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you stop prioritizing proximity over alignment. It means recognizing that loyalty to others cannot come at the cost of betrayal to yourself. Staying small so others feel comfortable isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. And if you want to rise, you must stop abandoning yourself. This process comes with guilt, the guilt of outgrowing people, the discomfort of realizing that conversations you once found entertaining now feel empty, that routines you once found comfortable now feel suffocating, that environments that once felt like home now feel like cages. And the world will try to convince you that something's wrong with you, that you've changed, that you're selfish, that you think you're better. But that's the noise of the uncomfortable truth. You have changed. Growth demands it. Evolving means shedding. It means walking away, not in anger, not in superiority, but in clarity. It means understanding that the path to who you're meant to become will at times require solitude, silence, distance. Not everyone is meant to understand. Not everyone is capable of growing at the same pace, and that's okay. But you cannot let that be the reason you slow down. Sometimes the dead weight isn't people. It's the rituals you've clung to for years. The habits that felt harmless but have been quietly stealing your momentum. The late nights, the junk you feed your mind, the excuses you've polished into believable stories. These too must be cut, because every ounce of energy you waste on things that don't align with your highest self is energy stolen from the life you're trying to build. Cutting dead weight isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's saying, I cannot carry who I was into the future I deserve. And when you do it, when you finally step into that version of you that's unburdened, unhindered, unchained, everything accelerates. Your focus sharpens. Your energy multiplies. Your standards become non-negotiable. And the life that once felt far away starts to move toward you with speed. But you must be willing to pay the price. The price is letting go. Letting go of relationships that feel heavy. Letting go of habits that dilute your power. Letting go of environments that whisper, stay here, play it safe, don't grow. The price is solitude sometimes, the uncomfortable quiet of outgrowing what no longer fits. But in that solitude, something powerful happens. You meet the next version of yourself. Clearer, sharper, unstoppable. Not everyone will understand the path you're on. That's fine. They don't have to. What matters is that you understand. You weren't born to carry the weight of a life that no longer fits. You were born to rise, to expand, to evolve. And sometimes that means cutting the dead weight and walking forward, alone if you have to, until you reach the life that was always meant to be yours. Delay gratification, multiply growth. In a world wired for instant results, where everything is available at the click of a button, the idea of patience feels almost rebellious. Society trains people to crave now. Fast money, fast success, fast comfort. Everywhere you look, there are promises of shortcuts, hacks, and quick wins. But what most people never understand, until it's too late, is that quick wins are almost always illusions. They may satisfy your hunger for the moment, but they starve your future. The truth is, the discipline of delaying gratification is one of the most powerful accelerators of success. It's a paradox. The more you're willing to wait, the faster you actually grow. The more you're willing to resist the dopamine hits of immediate comfort, the more you compound real progress. It's not about denying yourself forever. It's about mastering when to give yourself what you crave and when to withhold it because something greater is being built in the background. Most people fold under the pressure of waiting. Waiting feels like suffering when your mind isn't trained for it. They want results now. They want the payoff without the process. They chase what feels good today, only to be haunted by the weight of regret tomorrow. They don't realize that every time they choose the shortcut, they rob themselves of the long-term rewards that only discipline and patience can unlock. This is where the separation happens, the invisible line between those who dabble in growth and those who own it, between those who play the game casually and those who play it like warriors. The warrior understands that the game isn't about how fast you can win, it's about how long you can stay in it. It's about endurance. It's about whether you can delay the gratification long enough to become dangerous, so skilled, so prepared, so unstoppable that no amount of temporary discomfort can break you. There is nothing glamorous about this process. It's not flashy. It doesn't come with instant applause. No one celebrates you for skipping distractions, for choosing discipline when no one is watching, for grinding in the dark while others are indulging in every comfort available. You don't get trophies for delayed gratification. What you get instead is transformation. Quiet, ruthless, undeniable transformation. Every time you choose to wait, to hold the line, you strengthen something inside yourself that most people never even touch. You become less reactive, less dependent on external validation. You stop needing immediate results to validate your effort. Instead, you trust the process. You become a long-game thinker in a world addicted to the short game. And this shift changes everything. Look at anyone who has built something real, a thriving business, an unbreakable body, a powerful mind, a meaningful legacy. None of it came fast. None of it arrived through hacks or shortcuts. It was forged in the discipline of showing up daily, doing the work, stacking wins that no one could see yet. They were playing the long game, while the rest of the world was distracted by quick fixes and temporary pleasures. The danger of quick wins is that they teach you the wrong lessons. When things come easily, you start believing that's how the world works, that success should be instant, that progress should be constant, that discomfort means something is wrong. But the real world doesn't care about your desire for speed. The real world rewards those who build stamina, those who can outlast, those who can delay the comfort of now for the power of later. Delaying gratification doesn't mean deprivation. It's not about punishing yourself or living in misery. It's about clarity. It's about knowing what matters most and choosing that over what feels good in the moment. It's about understanding that discipline now creates freedom later, that every temptation you resist is an investment in a future where you no longer have to compromise. The warrior mindset is forged in this practice. Warriors don't rush. They don't panic when results take longer than expected. They know that mastery isn't a single event. It's the byproduct of relentless consistency stacked over months and years, often in complete silence, away from applause, away from validation. And because they embrace the long game, they are dangerous in a way that those addicted to instant gratification will never understand. There's an almost unfair advantage that comes from this way of living. While others get frustrated, quit, or pivot the moment things get hard or slow, you stay steady. You keep building. You keep refining. You keep showing up. And eventually, the gap between you and everyone else grows so large, it's unbridgeable. What looked like small, invisible choices, skipping a distraction here, choosing work over comfort there, compounds into results that appear overnight to everyone else. But you know the truth. It was never overnight. It was the long game paying off. Delayed gratification is the ultimate multiplier of growth. It's what transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It's the quiet superpower of those who win long term. Not because they had more talent, more luck, or more opportunity, but because they had the discipline to wait, to endure, and to outlast everyone who couldn't. When you understand this, something shifts forever. You stop asking, how fast can I get it? And start asking, how well can I build it so it lasts? And that's the moment you stop playing small and start playing like someone who's impossible to beat. Obsess over mastery, not perfection. Perfection is one of the most seductive lies the mind will ever sell you. It wears the mask of high standards, of excellence, of not wanting to release anything into the world until it's flawless. But underneath that mask, perfection is nothing but procrastination in disguise. It's fear. Fear dressed up as productivity. Fear whispering, it's not ready yet. You're not ready yet. If it's not perfect, you shouldn't even start. And for most people, that whisper is enough to keep them frozen forever. The pursuit of perfection is a trap so many fall into, thinking it's noble, but it's not noble. It's a prison, a way to delay action under the illusion that waiting until everything is flawless is somehow a better strategy. It's not. The graveyards of potential are filled with people who waited for perfect conditions, perfect timing, perfect clarity, and died waiting. The truth is, perfection doesn't exist. Not in business, not in fitness, not in art, not in life. There's only the relentless pursuit of mastery. Mastery is different. Mastery doesn't care about appearances. It doesn't care if the work looks messy to the outside world. It only cares that it's moving forward, improving, refining, evolving. Mastery lives in the gritty, unglamorous work of showing up daily, getting a little better, making the mistakes, learning the lessons, adjusting, and moving again. It's not about looking good, it's about getting good. This is where most people break. They get caught in optics. They care more about how the process looks than whether it's actually producing results. They hesitate to launch the business because the website isn't perfect. They skip workouts because the plan isn't flawless. They avoid sharing their voice because they worry about being judged. Perfection becomes the excuse that keeps them from ever stepping into the arena. But the ones who win, the ones who truly elevate, understand that the game isn't about pristine execution, it's about relentless progress. They obsess over mastery, not for the applause, not for validation, but because mastery itself becomes the reward. While perfectionists are still stuck at the starting line, tweaking, adjusting, second-guessing, the one who commits to mastery has already left them multiple times. Mastery frees you from the lie that you need to have it all figured out. It teaches you that the only way forward is through action, through doing the work badly at first, through learning in public, through iterating. It's not about never failing, it's about failing forward, about turning every mistake into a sharper edge, every misstep into a more accurate step next time. What's wild is how the pursuit of mastery actually ends up producing something that looks close to perfection, but only as a byproduct of repetition, correction, and time. Not because perfection was the goal, but because mastery naturally polishes the rough edges along the way. This mindset unlocks a kind of freedom most people never experience. You stop needing the conditions to be ideal. You stop obsessing over whether people will approve. You stop delaying your own greatness. You start to realize that no one's watching as closely as you think they are. And even if they are, their opinions don't pay your bills, build your legacy, or write your story. Mastery shifts your identity. You become someone who shows up whether motivation is there or not. Someone who executes whether the work feels clean or messy. Someone who understands that progress over perfection isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a law of success. You are either moving forward or you are stalling behind the mask of perfection. This isn't to say standards don't matter. They do, but the highest standard isn't about flawlessness, it's about truth. It's about the honesty of effort, about asking yourself every day, did I get better? Did I move the needle? Did I sharpen my edge? The answers to those questions compound over time into mastery so undeniable that perfection feels irrelevant. The great irony is that the people most obsessed with perfection never get there because they never produce enough, never practice enough, never risk enough to evolve. Meanwhile, the ones obsessed with mastery, who stumble, learn, adapt, repeat, end up looking like geniuses to the outside world, not because they were perfect, but because they refuse to let perfection stop them from becoming unstoppable. Mastery doesn't demand that you get it right every time. It demands that you never stop showing up, that you learn, that you refine, that you commit to the process so fully that the results become inevitable. Perfection dies where mastery begins, and where mastery lives, growth compounds into something extraordinary. Stop waiting for perfect. Start getting better. Obsess over mastery. That's how greatness is built. Walk like you've already become it. Transformation doesn't start when you achieve the goal. It doesn't begin when the bank account finally reflects your ambition, when your body mirrors your discipline, or when the world applauds your efforts. It starts long before the physical evidence arrives. It begins the moment you decide to carry yourself as the person you are becoming, not the person you've been. This is the cheat code to transformation. Walking like you've already become it. There's a hidden law in the universe that few understand deeply enough to use. The law is simple but life-altering. The world responds to the energy you project. Before you get the thing, you must become the person who has it. Not just intellectually, not just through vision boards or future journaling, but in how you move, how you speak, how you think, how you show up when no one's watching. Most people get it backwards. They wait for the evidence. They wait until they have the money before thinking like someone successful. They wait until their body transforms before moving like someone confident. They wait until someone else validates them before giving themselves permission to believe they are worthy. But this is the reason they stay stuck. Waiting is the ultimate form of self-sabotage. The people who ascend, the ones who seem to defy gravity, are the ones who collapse the gap between who they are now and who they are becoming. They stop waiting. They decide. And the decision is everything. They embody the future self before the physical proof arrives. And here's the strange magic of it all. The external world starts bending to meet the internal reality they've chosen. Think about it. When you carry yourself like someone who is disciplined, who is unstoppable, who is successful, people treat you differently. Opportunities start appearing. Doors open that seemed locked before. It's not coincidence, it's resonance. You've shifted your frequency. You've begun operating on the level of the reality you're building, not the one you're trying to escape. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. The mind will resist, your past will scream for relevance, it will remind you of every failure, every broken promise, every version of yourself that played small. It will whisper, "Who are you to act like you've already made it?" That voice is the echo of an old identity fighting for survival. And that's when you lean in harder. You double down on becoming, because the only way to silence that voice is through action. You start moving differently. You pay attention to how the highest version of you walks into a room, shoulders back, head high. Not in arrogance, but in certainty. You speak with clarity, not hesitation. You stop explaining yourself, stop shrinking, stop diluting your ambition to make others comfortable. You begin thinking in solutions, not problems. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start asking, "How will I?" Every conversation becomes a reflection of the future, not the past. You speak like someone who has already solved the problem, already achieved the goal, already broken through. You move with the calm confidence of someone who knows their arrival is inevitable because they've already arrived internally. This doesn't mean pretending. This isn't about faking it. It's about aligning yourself with the future so aggressively that the gap between reality and vision gets smaller by the day. The actions aren't fake. The belief is real. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're stepping into the truest version of yourself, the version that fear, doubt, and procrastination have been hiding. And the world notices. Whether people consciously recognize it or not, they feel the shift. The energy becomes undeniable. You are no longer broadcasting the frequency of someone hoping, wishing, waiting. You are transmitting the energy of certainty, of inevitability. And that energy attracts, not in a mystical, magical way, but in a practical, grounded way. People trust certainty. They gravitate toward clarity. Opportunities flow to those who seem like they're already prepared to hold them. This is why so many stay stuck in cycles of waiting. Waiting to feel ready, waiting until the conditions are perfect, waiting until the fear disappears. But waiting is passive. Becoming is active. The moment you flip that switch, when you stop waiting for permission and start embodying who you've decided to become, the game changes. Everything from the way you handle your mornings to the way you make decisions shifts. You stop tolerating distractions because the highest version of you doesn't live in chaos. You stop entertaining doubt because the future you isn't driven by fear. You start setting boundaries not from defensiveness, but from clarity, because your energy is no longer available for anything that doesn't align. Even your language transforms. You stop saying things like, I hope, or I'm trying. You replace them with, I will, I am, it's happening. Not because you're forcing confidence, but because you've chosen certainty over hesitation. You realize that the words you speak are not just reflections of your beliefs, they are instructions to your subconscious and signals to the world. This identity shift creates momentum, and momentum is everything. Momentum makes hard things feel lighter. It shrinks the distance between effort and result. When you begin living as if it's already done, your actions start catching up faster because they're no longer powered by doubt, but by alignment. And in this process, something deeper happens. You stop being surprised by your own success. You stop acting like an outsider looking in on the life you want. Instead, you start moving through the world like someone for whom success is the natural consequence of who they are. Not because you think you're special, not because of arrogance, but because you've simply decided that the identity of the person who wins is the one you wear now. This is what separates those who manifest change from those who dream about it. The ability to walk like you've already become it, even when the bank account doesn't show it yet, even when the scale hasn't shifted, even when the business hasn't exploded, because waiting for the proof is the slowest way to get the proof. Living as if is the fastest accelerator there is. But be prepared. The old life won't like this version of you. People who knew the smaller version of you may become uncomfortable. They may say you've changed, and they'll be right. You have. You are no longer available for conversations that celebrate mediocrity, no longer participating in patterns that delay your evolution, no longer tolerating environments that disrespect your future. The solitude that comes with this shift is real. It's part of the price, but it's not loneliness, it's clarity. The clarity that the next level requires a different you. Not a better you, not someone else, but the you that was always buried under layers of doubt, fear, and conditioning. Walk like you've already become it. Not someday, not when others believe it. Now. Today. Because the truth is simple. The moment you decide that you are that person, you already are. The world won't believe it until you do. But once you do, the world has no choice but to catch up. The relentless evolution mindset. There is a mindset that separates those who taste temporary success from those who become unstoppable forces of nature. It is not rooted in motivation. It has nothing to do with luck, talent, or even discipline alone. It's built on one fundamental belief, that the process of outgrowing yourself is never ending, that there is no arrival, no finish line, no point where you get to exhale, say, I've made it, and step off the treadmill of evolution. Growth, in its truest form, is infinite. This mindset demands something most people are unwilling to give, the complete rejection of settling. It's the rejection of comfort as a permanent home. It's the willingness to look at every version of yourself, even the one you're proud of now, and recognize that this too will need to be dismantled. This too will need to be burned down and rebuilt. The relentless evolution mindset means understanding that the person you are today is just a draft, a rough prototype of who you are still capable of becoming. It's knowing that if you're not at least a little embarrassed by the way you were thinking, behaving, or operating 6 months ago, then you haven't grown. You've stagnated. You've been circling the same mountain, convincing yourself it's progress because it feels busy, but deep down, you know the truth. You've traded discomfort for familiarity. It's a harsh reality, but a liberating one. The second you accept that growth has no ceiling, you free yourself from the illusion that one day it gets easier. You stop fantasizing about the arrival moment, the day where the problems vanish, the discipline becomes effortless, and the hunger subsides. That day never comes, and it shouldn't, because the moment you arrive is the moment you start dying. Look at nature. Anything that stops growing starts decaying. A tree that no longer stretches toward the sun begins to rot. Water that stops moving becomes stagnant and toxic. Evolution isn't just some motivational concept, it's the law of existence itself. Adapt or die, evolve or dissolve. Those aren't slogans. They are biological, universal truths. The problem is that modern society has seduced people into believing that life is about arrival, about getting there, about securing the job, hitting the income goal, sculpting the body, reaching the milestone, as if these are destinations. And once reached, the idea is that you get to relax, ease off, and enjoy some permanent comfort. But life doesn't work like that. The second you start coasting, you start sliding backward. The relentless evolution mindset is the antidote. It's the internal oath you take with yourself. Never settle. Never stop. Kill the old you. Build the next version. Repeat until death. That is the game. And the game never ends. It is brutal. It is exhausting. It is at times lonely, because the truth is, most people don't live like this. Most people cling desperately to the last version of themselves that brought them comfort or validation. They achieve something that once seemed impossible, and instead of asking, "What's next?" they begin asking, "How can I maintain this without discomfort?" But maintenance is just slow decay dressed in denial. This isn't about chasing goals for the sake of endless ambition. It's deeper. It's about refusing to betray the future versions of yourself that only become real if you have the courage to burn the current one. It's about knowing that every identity, every pattern, every habit you hold on to too tightly eventually becomes a limitation, no matter how noble or useful it once was. The real warriors, the ones who seem untouchable, the ones who walk into rooms with a presence that can't be explained, are simply those who have buried more versions of themselves than most will ever dare to create. They have made peace with the constant cycle of death and rebirth, of killing the old self and rebuilding the next. Not once, not twice, but over and over. It's just who they are. Every 6 months they look back and cringe, not because who they were was weak, but because it was limited, because what once felt like a mountain is now a molehill, because the problems that once seemed massive are now irrelevant. That's the byproduct of relentless evolution. Reality keeps expanding. What once looked like the ceiling becomes the floor. But this isn't a process that happens on accident. It requires conscious, violent intention. It requires stepping into discomfort as a lifestyle, not as a phase. It demands that you never mistake a plateau for permanence, that you treat every comfort zone not as a home, but as a waiting room for the next battle. You learn to stop clinging. You stop making identities out of temporary versions of yourself. You stop saying things like, "This is just who I am," because you know that statement is the beginning of decay. You start asking better questions. Who is the next version of me? What skills does that person have? What does that person tolerate? How does that person think? How does that person move? You live inside those questions until the answers become who you are, and then you ask them again. This process is not clean. It's chaotic. Growth isn't linear. It's painful. Messy. It's letting go of relationships that don't fit the next version of you. It's abandoning habits that once brought you comfort. It's waking up one day and realizing that even though you're proud of what you've done, you are disgusted by the idea of staying here one moment longer. And yes, people won't understand. They'll call you obsessed. They'll say you're never satisfied, that you should slow down, take a break, just enjoy life. But what they don't understand is that this is enjoying life. The hunt, the chase, the endless pursuit of becoming, the refusal to sit still, the absolute rage against stagnation. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. The pain of growth is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. The discomfort of shedding old identities lasts a moment. But the suffocating weight of knowing you could have been more and chose not to, that lasts forever. So you choose the discomfort. You choose the fire. You choose to burn it down. Not because the current you is broken, but because the future demands more. And every time you do, you get sharper, more disciplined, more aware, more dangerous. The relentless evolution mindset isn't something you visit, it's where you live. It's the standard, the code. The quiet, unbreakable promise you make to yourself that no matter how far you've come, there's always another level, another mountain, another version waiting to be built. And you will build it, not someday, not when it's convenient, but now, always now. Because the oath is clear: never settle, never stop. Kill the old you, build the next version, repeat until death. The old you has served its purpose, but it has no place in the future you're building. Growth isn't something you visit, it's a decision you live with daily. Outgrowing the past isn't a one-time event. It's a relentless commitment to becoming more, doing more, and refusing to settle. Burn the fallback plans, kill the excuses, step fully into the identity of who you're meant to be. The choice is simple: evolve or stay trapped. Your future is waiting.